What if I told you that 30 minutes of writing on December 31st could determine your entire financial reality for the next 12 months? In 1929, a woman named Margaret sat down on New Year's Eve with nothing but a pen and Florence Scovel Shinn's instructions. She was unemployed, living in a rented room, had $17 to her name. She wrote for exactly 30 minutes. 30 days later, she had a position paying more than she'd ever imagined possible. 6 months after that, she owned her own business. 1 year later, she was teaching others the same method. This wasn't journaling. This wasn't goal setting. This was something Florence Scovel Shinn called scripting your divine plan, and she insisted that when done correctly, it bypasses every human limitation and activates spiritual law directly. Today, I'm revealing the exact 30-minute method she taught, why it works when traditional planning fails, and how you can use it to script your entire 2026 before this year ends. Before we dive into the specific technique, you need to understand why Florence Scovel Shinn believed writing held such extraordinary power. In her book, Your Word is Your Wand, she wrote, "The imaging faculty plays a leading part in the game of life. You have observed that all people who have made a great success have very clear mental pictures of what they desire. These pictures take form in words." She wasn't talking about visualization alone. She was pointing to something deeper. The act of writing your desires in specific language creates what she called a mold in the universal substance. Think of it like giving the universe exact blueprints instead of vague suggestions. Most people approach the new year with resolutions. I want to make more money. I want to be healthier. I want to be happier. These are wishes, not scripts. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the universe responds to precise instruction, not general hoping. When Margaret sat down that New Year's Eve in 1929, she didn't write, "I hope to find a job" or "I want financial security." She wrote, following Florence's exact formula, "I am now in my true place doing my perfect work for generous pay. I am deeply fulfilled and abundantly compensated. My talents are recognized and rewarded beyond my expectations." Notice the difference. Every word was in present tense. Every statement was specific. Every declaration claimed what was desired as already accomplished in divine mind. The method Florence Scovel Shinn taught had 3 distinct phases, each designed to dissolve a different level of resistance between current reality and desired manifestation. The first phase she called the clearing. This is where most people sabotage themselves before they even begin. You cannot script abundance while holding resentment. You cannot write prosperity while clutching past failures. Florence insisted that before you put pen to paper to declare your new reality, you must consciously release everything blocking it. She would tell her students, bless the past and let it go. Forgive every person who hurt you financially. Release every failure, every disappointment, every time you felt cheated or overlooked. Why? Because resentment is an anchor. It keeps you tied to the very conditions you're trying to escape. In her documented cases, she recorded a man who spent 10 years trying to manifest financial success with no results. When she worked with him, she discovered he was still bitter about a business partner who betrayed him 15 years earlier. She had him write one simple statement: "I fully and freely forgive name of partner. I release this situation to divine love. All resentment dissolves now." He wrote it 50 times. By the 30th repetition, he was crying. By the 50th, he felt lighter than he had in years. Within 2 months, a new business opportunity appeared that exceeded anything his old partnership could have produced. The clearing isn't optional. It's foundational. Here's how you do the clearing phase in the first 10 minutes of your 30-minute scripting session. Take a blank page. At the top, write, "I now release and forgive everything blocking my divine prosperity." Then list every financial disappointment, every person you resent, every failure you're still holding on to. Don't analyze it. Don't judge it. Just write it down. The job you didn't get, the raise you were denied, the investment that failed, the person who owes you money, the parent who taught you poverty thinking, the friend who succeeded while you struggled. Write it all. Then, beneath your list, write this exact statement that Florence Scovel Shinn used with hundreds of students. "I fully and freely forgive every person, situation, and circumstance on this list. I release all resentment, bitterness, and attachment to these experiences. They have no power over my future. I am free. My prosperity path is clear. Divine abundance flows to me now unobstructed." Read this statement aloud 3 times. Then tear up the page or burn it safely. This is symbolic but spiritually significant. You're telling the universe, "I'm no longer defined by my past. I'm available for something new." The second phase Florence called the envisioning, and this is where the actual scripting happens. You have 20 minutes remaining. Get a fresh page. At the top, write your name and the year. Margaret, 2026. Then begin writing in first person, present tense, as if you're living on December 31st, 2026, and describing your year. This is critical. You're not writing what you hope will happen. You're writing what has happened from the perspective of it already being complete. Florence Scovel Shinn was adamant about this. She said, "Do not look for results. Act as if you had already received." This confuses the logical mind, which is exactly the point. Your logical mind operates from current limitations, but your divine mind, your connection to infinite supply, operates from possibility. When you write as if it's already done, you bypass logic and speak directly to spiritual law. Here's what Margaret wrote in 1929, and I'm sharing this because it demonstrates the specific style Florence taught. Today is December 31st, 1930. I am overwhelmed with gratitude as I reflect on this extraordinary year. In January, I began working at the most wonderful company where my skills are valued and my contributions recognized. I am earning $60 per week, more than I ever imagined possible. My employers respect me. My colleagues appreciate me. I feel fulfilled and purposeful every single day. In March, I moved into a beautiful apartment with large windows and sunlight that fills every room. I can afford it comfortably. I feel safe and at peace in my home. In June, I started my own business on the side, using my gifts to serve others and being generously compensated. In September, I took my first real vacation, something I never thought I could afford. In December, I have savings in the bank, gifts for everyone I love, and a heart full of joy. This year exceeded every expectation. I am so grateful. Do you see what she did? Specific details, past tense from future perspective, emotional language, gratitude woven throughout. No mention of how it happened, just that it did. Now let me pause here because many of you are feeling something right now. You want to believe this works, but there's a voice in your head saying, "This is childish. This is make-believe. How can writing something make it real?" That voice is your poverty consciousness trying to protect itself. Florence Scovel Shinn addressed this directly. She said the intellect is always reasoning from the seen to the seen. It cannot see the invisible. But spiritual law operates in the invisible realm first, then manifests in the visible. If you recognize that doubt has stopped you from claiming your prosperity in writing, leave a comment saying, "I've let doubt block my divine script." When you name this resistance publicly, you diminish its power. And your honesty gives others permission to move past their own doubt. Because here's the truth. The universe doesn't require your belief to operate. It requires your alignment. And writing your desired reality in specific present tense language is an act of alignment. Now let's continue with how to complete your script. As you write your 2026 life script in those 20 minutes, Florence gave specific categories to include. Don't just write about money, though financial abundance should absolutely be there. Write about your perfect work. Where are you working? What are you doing? How do you feel about it? How much are you earning? Write about your living situation. Where do you live? What does it look like? How does it feel to be there? Write about your relationships. Who are the people surrounding you? How do they treat you? What kind of energy do they bring? Write about your health and vitality. How does your body feel? What activities are you enjoying? Write about your creative expression. What are you creating? How are you contributing? Write about your spiritual growth. How has your consciousness expanded? What do you understand now that you didn't before? And critically, write about your financial state. How much do you have saved? What are you able to afford comfortably? What generosity are you able to express? Florence insisted on specificity because vague scripts produce vague results. Don't write, "I am financially comfortable." Write, "I have $10,000 in savings, and I earn $7,000 per month doing work I love." Don't write, "I live in a nice place." Write, "I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with a balcony overlooking trees where I drink coffee every morning in gratitude." There's a reason this precision matters that goes beyond simple manifestation mechanics. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that every word you speak or write is either a declaration of faith or a declaration of fear. When you write specific abundance, you're declaring faith in divine supply. When you keep things vague, you're unconsciously protecting yourself from disappointment, which is a declaration of fear that it won't happen. She documented a case of a woman who wrote, "I have a good income." After 6 months with no change, Florence asked her, "What's a good income?" The woman couldn't answer. She realized she'd been afraid to name a number because naming it would make it real. And if it didn't happen, she'd feel foolish. Florence had her rewrite the script with an exact figure. Within 30 days, she received that exact amount through a combination of sources she never could have predicted. The universe can't deliver what you won't clearly request. After you've written your comprehensive life script for 2026, covering work, home, relationships, health, creativity, spirituality, and finances in specific detail, There's a third phase Florence called the sealing. This is the final 10 minutes, though in practice it takes less. You read your entire script aloud, not silently, aloud. Florence taught that the spoken word carries vibration that activates spiritual law. In The Power of the Spoken Word, she wrote, "By your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned." Words are vehicles of power. They carry either creative or destructive energy. When you read your script aloud, you're not just affirming it mentally, you're releasing it into the atmosphere. You're claiming it in the realm of sound and vibration where manifestation begins. As you read, Florence instructed students to do something that might feel strange at first but is spiritually essential. After each section, say thank you. Thank you for my perfect work and generous compensation. Thank you for my beautiful home. Thank you for loving relationships. Thank you for vibrant health. Thank you for financial abundance. Gratitude in advance is the ultimate expression of faith. You're thanking the divine for what is already established in spiritual reality, even though it hasn't yet manifested in physical form. This is what Florence meant when she said, "Do not look for results. Act as if you had already received." Thanking God in advance is acting as if you've already received. Then, at the very end of your script, write one final declaration that Florence used with nearly everyone she taught. "This, or something better, now manifests for me in perfect timing for the highest good of all. I release this to divine law and trust completely." Why this specific ending? Because it accomplishes three things simultaneously. First, it releases attachment to exactly how things unfold. You've stated your desire clearly, but you're surrendering control of the method. Second, it invokes divine timing, acknowledging that spiritual law knows the perfect moment for everything. And third, it ensures your manifestation harms no one, which keeps it in alignment with love instead of ego. Now here's what happens after you complete your 30-minute scripting session, and this is where most people either amplify their manifestation or completely sabotage it. Florence Scovel Shinn was very clear about what to do with your written script. You have two choices. Either seal it in an envelope and put it somewhere safe where you won't obsessively read it, or destroy it completely. Both methods work. Both have the same purpose: release. If you keep your script and read it every single day, you're often operating from lack consciousness, checking to see if it's happening yet. Florence called this watching the pot. She said the universe cannot deliver what you're desperately clutching. But if you write your script, seal it, or destroy it, and then live as if it's already done, you create space for manifestation to occur. She documented a powerful case from 1935. A man wrote his financial script, sealed it in an envelope, put it in a drawer, and genuinely forgot about it. He went about his life, focused on his work, served others, stayed in gratitude. Exactly 11 months later, he found the envelope while cleaning. When he opened it and read what he'd written, everything on that page had manifested. Not approximately, exactly. He wept because he realized he'd been living his scripted life without even consciously knowing it. This brings us to the most important part of Florence Scovel Shinn's scripting method, the part that determines whether this is just a nice writing exercise or a genuine activation of spiritual law. After you complete your script and seal or destroy it, you must live from the consciousness of your script, not toward it. What does this mean practically? If you scripted abundant income, you must stop speaking lack. If you catch yourself saying, "I'm broke," or "I can't afford that," you're contradicting your script and canceling its power. If you scripted your perfect work, you must stop complaining about your current job. Complaints are declarations of permanence. They tell the universe, "This is my reality. Send me more of this." If you scripted a beautiful home, you must bless where you currently live and care for it with gratitude instead of resentment. Florence was adamant about this principle. She said, "You must act the part." If you have scripted prosperity, you must think, speak, and behave as a prosperous person, even before the money appears. This doesn't mean spending money you don't have. It means carrying yourself with dignity, speaking with confidence, giving generously from what you do have, and refusing to participate in poverty conversations. She told a story of a woman who scripted financial abundance and then, 3 days later, was invited to lunch with wealthy friends. Her immediate thought was, "I can't afford to eat where they eat." Florence stopped her. She said, "You just scripted abundance. You cannot script prosperity and then declare poverty in the same breath." The woman went to lunch, ordered modestly but confidently, enjoyed the experience, and insisted on leaving the tip. It was a stretch financially, but it was an act of faith. 2 weeks later, she received a financial opportunity that exceeded her entire script. Florence believed that opportunity came directly because the woman had acted as if she was already prosperous. The universe reads your actions more than your words. Let me show you 3 documented cases of people who used Florence Scovel Shinn's 30-minute scripting method and what happened. The first is Margaret, who we mentioned at the beginning. She scripted her 1930 life on December 31st, 1929. She wrote about meaningful work, financial security, a peaceful home, and joyful relationships. On January 14th, exactly 2 weeks later, she met a woman at church who mentioned her company needed someone with Margaret's exact skills. Margaret had never told this woman what her skills were. The woman just knew. Margaret interviewed. They offered her a position paying more than she'd scripted. She accepted. By March, she'd moved into an apartment almost identical to what she'd described in her script, down to the windows and sunlight. By year end, every single element of her script had manifested. When Florence interviewed her about the experience, Margaret said something profound. She said, "The strangest part was it felt natural, like I was just stepping into something that was already prepared for me." The second case involved a man named Robert in 1933, middle of the Depression. He was facing bankruptcy. His business had collapsed. He had 3 children and no idea how he'd feed them next month. Someone gave him Florence's book. He read about scripting. He thought it was nonsense, but he was desperate enough to try anything. He spent 30 minutes writing his ideal 1934. He wrote about his business rebuilt and thriving. He wrote about providing abundantly for his family. He wrote about being debt-free. He wrote about having savings. He sealed the script in an envelope and honestly forgot about it because survival consumed him. But here's what he noticed. His attitude shifted. He stopped complaining. He started looking for opportunity instead of drowning in despair. Within 6 weeks, a former colleague contacted him with a business proposition. Within 4 months, the new venture was profitable. Within 8 months, he'd paid off his debts. By December 31st, 1934, he had everything he'd scripted plus more. He only remembered the script when his wife found the envelope in early 1935. He credited Florence's method with saving not just his finances but his sanity. The third case is more recent, from someone who discovered Florence's work in 2023. A single mother, drowning in debt, working 2 jobs, exhausted and hopeless. She found Florence's books online. She read about scripting. On December 31st, 2023, she wrote her 2024 script. Better paying work, financial breathing room, time with her children, peace instead of panic. She wrote for 30 minutes, sealed it, put it away. Then something interesting happened. She started noticing opportunities she'd been too stressed to see before. A neighbor mentioned a remote position at her company. She applied. She got it. It paid significantly more and gave her schedule flexibility. By June, she'd paid off half her debt. By September, she had savings for the first time in years. By December, she was living everything she'd scripted. When I asked her what made the difference, she said, "Writing it down made it real in my mind. Once it was real in my mind, I could see the path to make it real in my life." Do you see the pattern in these cases? None of them involved magic. All of them involve spiritual law. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that scripting works because it aligns your consciousness with divine mind. Divine mind already sees you prosperous, fulfilled, abundant, and joyful. But your human mind, conditioned by past failure and current limitation, can't see it. When you write your desired reality in specific detail, you're bridging the gap. You're training your mind to see what divine mind already knows. And once your mind can see it, your actions align with it. Once your actions align with it, opportunities appear. Once opportunities appear, manifestation follows. It's not random. It's law. Now let me address the question I know many of you have. What if I script something and it doesn't happen? Florence anticipated this. She said there are only 3 reasons a script doesn't manifest. First, you wrote from ego instead of divine guidance. You scripted what you thought you should want instead of what your soul actually desires. Second, you contradicted your script with your daily words and thoughts. You wrote abundance but spoke lack. You wrote confidence but acted from fear. And third, something better was prepared for you and your script was too small. This is why she always ended with this or something better. She had absolute faith that divine mind would either deliver what was scripted or exceed it with something more aligned with your highest good. But she also taught that the act of scripting is never wasted. Even if the specific details don't manifest exactly as written, the consciousness shift that occurs through scripting always produces positive change. You cannot write abundance and stay in poverty thinking. You cannot script joy and remain bitter. The process itself transforms you. So here's what I want you to do before this year ends. Set aside 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be New Year's Eve, though there's something powerful about threshold moments. It can be any quiet moment before January 1st. Get a pen and paper, not a computer. Handwriting activates something deeper. Follow the 3 phases. 10 minutes clearing and forgiving everything blocking you. 20 minutes writing your 2026 life in first person, present tense, past tense from future perspective, specific details, emotional language, covering every area of life. Final moments reading it aloud with gratitude after each section and sealing with this or something better now manifests. Then seal it in an envelope or safely destroy it. Release it to divine law. And then, this is critical, live from the consciousness of your script. Speak as someone whose script is already manifesting. Think as someone whose desires are already fulfilled. Act as someone whose prosperity is already established. This is not pretending. This is aligning. Florence Scovel Shinn proved through hundreds of documented cases that when you align your consciousness with your desired reality through the power of the written word, spiritual law must respond, not might, must. Because that's how law works. If you've made it this far, it's because your soul recognizes truth when it hears it. And I want you to know this isn't accidental. Divine prosperity exists for people who are ready to align their consciousness with the spiritual laws that govern abundance. People who understand that prosperity isn't just about working harder, it's about thinking differently. This isn't just another finance channel teaching budgets and investments you can find anywhere. This is where we explore the metaphysical principles Florence Scovel Shinn taught that transform financial reality from the inside out. If you're ready to activate divine supply in your life, subscribe to Divine Prosperity and turn on notifications. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we release new teachings on spiritual laws of abundance, the power of the spoken word, and how to dissolve prosperity blocks. Not theory, practical application, because what you believe creates what you receive, and what you speak manifests in your life. Next video, we're revealing Florence Scovel Shinn's most powerful technique for dissolving debt consciousness, the spiritual treatment she used that eliminated financial obligations for dozens of her students without struggle or sacrifice. Your prosperity is divinely ordained. The choice to claim it is yours.